Concentrate. Concentrate in this episode of Battle Guides as we feature Marmalee, the Lost Princess. Marmalee is a slow fighter who makes use of her tempo and positioning abilities to stay ahead in the game. She likes to stay at range, but more importantly, it's about making your opponent miss. As such, she is as much as a brawler as she is a ranger. She likes to stay close if enemies want to be far, and afar if enemies want to be close. Marmalee is great at abusing positioning and poking opponents from afar. And when used with proper timing, it's very hard to get a hit in on her. As such, as long as you're leading in life, it's quite hard for you to lose as Marmalee, especially if you play properly. That and her ability to use concentration tokens to buff nearly all of her styles makes her one of the most formidable and scary fighters in the roster we have today. However, with that kind of power, there has to be some weakness. Marmalee can't win one-on-one fights. If you try to fight head-on with her, you will not win. Most of her cards and most of her attacks are all about pausing, gaining tokens, then choosing to attack after a few amount of turns. Think Hekech, but extremely more patient. And aside from that, her reliance on tokens means that if she ever gets hit enough times and she doesn't have enough tokens in her pool, you'll be left with a sub-power character with weak effects. Marmalee's unique ability is concentration. Marmalee starts a game with 2 concentration tokens and gains 1 when you cycle discards, up to a maximum of 5. You can't anti these and they do nothing on their own. Instead, Marmalee spends them on her styles to fuel her attacks. Whenever Marmalee is stunned, she loses all of her tokens. Do note that even though you are a reactive player, that is, if you went second this beat, you can still be stunned by somebody who will break your stun guard. So be careful. Marmalee's 2 Overdrive finishers are Astral Cannon and Astral Trance. Astral Cannon is basically a desperation move or a finish off this opponent move. Marmalee can spend her tokens to give this attack up to plus 10 power, and that is amazing. However, it has quite the quirky range, so be careful when using it. On the other hand, we have Astral Trance. Astral Trance gives Marmalee a lot of defense, allowing her to gain tokens while still retaining them after said gain. Being a ranger, Marmalee likes using Pulse for her special action. This gives her some room to breathe and some space to work with. However, do note that it still doesn't give you a concentration token when you do it. However, when the need arises, I do suggest that when you have to use an Overdrive, it has to be Astral Trance. It has way more benefits than Astral Cannon does, and even though Astral Cannon can finish your opponents off, the only time you'd use your Overdrive finish is in desperation. And if you're desperate to use an Overdrive, I don't think you'll have enough tokens to fuel Astral Cannon with. What really makes Marmalee as a character is her styles. She doesn't have really good stats on them, but their effects can be simply mind-blowingly good. Let's start off with one of my favorites, shall we? Barrier is devastating no matter where you are on the board, and if you're melee to Marmalee, she can just push you out of the way when she needs to. Before activating, she can basically, well, push you out of the way if she needs to. But start of beat, she can spend a lot of tokens, that's around 4, to make you miss no matter what. Having this style in your hand as Marmalee basically telegraphs to opponents that they might not hit this turn. And although that doesn't sound like too much of a bonus, people like Seth are built around this one small detail. If you can scare your opponents into thinking that you'll play and spend on this style, they will start playing suboptimally, and that is great for you. However, do note that the start of beat is optional, so don't be afraid of actually playing this style. As with most of Marmalee's cards, you don't have to commit your tokens to anything. You only have to use them if you really want to. And now let's move on to Magnificent. And in one word, this style is simply magnificent. Okay, bad pun. This style has awkward range, adding +1 to your minimum range, which is quite awkward for a lot of characters, especially people not as mobile as Marmalee. And I say that in the sense that she can't be mobile without spending tokens, okay? This attack can let her spend tokens to deal more damage. Overall, this card can possibly become a +4 onto any of Marmalee's attacks. However, do note that you have to spend 5 tokens to get there. What makes this style truly magnificent is the fact that its after activating effect only costs 2 tokens and technically counts as a pseudo dash. Use it to dodge your opponents wisely. Nullifying is great for nullifying your opponent's attack, especially if it's something melee like strike or grass. The start of beat retreat 1 allows Marmalee to disengage from melee, however, it makes it crucial because this card has +1 minimum range, meaning that you need that retreat 1 for it to work. So be wary when using this card against a wall. Its on-hit effect allows you to spend tokens this time to lower your opponent's attack. This is amazing against people like Cadenza, people like Alexia, and these kinds of characters that don't have too many ranged options, while at the same time deal a lot of damage. So you might think that Barrier is Marmalee's clockwork style. That is the style that everybody's supposed to be worried about. You'd be wrong. She has a style that's even better, and it's called Petrifying. Marmalee can spend 3 counters to become active player. Boom. No strings attached, you're active player. Your burst will outspeed a Demetros. That's crazy. Not to mention that it has an on-hit effect that allows you to spend 2 tokens to stun opponents on hit. You use both and you practically win every single beat. But it does cost a lot of tokens to use. As such, be wary when you use it, but don't be afraid to abuse it as well. Remember that you get to activate the effects after seeing your opponent's attack pair. As such, you commonly don't need to use both of the effects to win the beat. Usually just one of the 2. Sorceress is one of those styles that most of you will probably think is useless. It has no good stats, it has no good power, it has no good priority, so what's the point? You're not meant to pair it with a strong attack, but it's actually meant to help Marmalee get through those beats where she only has 1 or 2 tokens. It's before activating gives any attack you have +0 to 2 range, and that is amazing on strength. More on how strike is so amazing later on. Its end of beat effect allows you to keep up with those pesky rangers who keep getting away from you, or to get away from the brawlers who keep trying to get in on you. Either way, the end of beat movement is amazing as Marmalee is a positioning based character and she needs to abuse positioning as much as possible. And finally, we have her unique base. Meditation. On its own, it's pretty much a decent base. 1 range, 2 power, 3 priority. Nothing too great. However, its start of beat allows you to burn tokens to gain soak. And on a character who doesn't want to get stunned, this is her only card aside from the regular bases that gives her any defense at all. So use it well. Its end of beat also accelerates the amount of tokens that you gain by 1. As such, it's great for preparation, or to make up for any tokens that you had to spend during a beat. And now let's move on to the part that most of you watched this video for: advanced guides and advanced strategies. So, what is it about Marmalee that makes her such a great character is the fact that she is all about rhythm and patience. This was first seen on characters like Akech, but Marmalee just takes it up to an entirely new level, because if she miscalculates a single beat, all that preparation goes to waste. Several keys to playing Marmalee well involve her 3 styles of defense. And by styles of defense, I mean basis of defense. Dashing, striking, and shotting. Shotting was example. These are the only attacks she can use defensively without having to spend her tokens. As you notice, most of her defensive effects also require tokens to use. As such, dashing is great for getting a free token, strike is great for getting a free token, and retaining the ones you already have, while shot is great for mitigating pokes at long range since most of them don't deal too much damage. Careful use of these three bases will determine your success as our lost princess. Another key player in Marmalee's playstyle will be her tokens. And I mean that in a way that you might not be thinking of. You see, your tokens basically determine which effects you can and cannot activate in a turn. That is, if you don't have 4 tokens, you won't be using Barrier Start to Beat. If you don't have 3 tokens, you won't be using Petrifying Start to Beat either. This basically telegraphs to your opponent which moves you can or cannot do, or rather, which moves will have any effect at all. Use this to your advantage. Most opponents will start playing according to what seems to be optimal for you in a beat, but do note that your cards still have base stats on their own without having to spend any tokens. Use these stats to trick him or catch him off guard with a powerful attack or a fast attack that he didn't see coming. And speaking of token management and looking at tokens, another key strategy to Marmalee is the fact that you need to know when and where to spend those tokens. Keeping a lot of tokens in your hand scares opponents and makes them play suboptimally, while at the same time, keeping those tokens in your hand means that you are very susceptible to just losing all of your power at once. So know the proper balance of attrition and proper use of your effects so that you can spend those tokens on beats that matter and make your opponent cry in shame. And as with all the characters, let's move on to some really good attacks. First of all, we'll have Magnificent Drive. Now, it might seem awkward for you guys to have an attack that has a minimum range while putting it on a base that makes you get closer to people. So what's the deal? It's because you're supposed to use this attack when you're in melee range. Opponents will not see Magnificent coming and they'll probably play cards that don't have a lot of stun guard and soak, since they're gonna be like, you can't do the Magnificent, even though you can. By using drives before activating effect, you can advance 2 spaces past your opponent to get to range 2 and hit him with that Magnificent. 7 damage. Not bad. Next, we have Sorceress Strike. What better way to use a defensive style than putting it on one of the most defensive bases in the game? Much like with Magnificent Drive, this attack is meant to be used in melee. When your opponent is in melee, he has a few things he can do. 1, he can hit you hard for a strike. 2, he can grasp you out of your range. Or 3, he can burst out of your range. Sorceress Strike counters both grasps and bursts in that regard. Not only that, but you can also have a case wherein your opponent doesn't do any of those things and you don't have to spend tokens. Basically, it's a free token that's safe and possibly can net you 4 damage. And finally, we have one of my favorite attacks, and that's Petrifying Shot. Petrifying Shot is basically 4 power, 1 to 4 range, 1 priorities. The good thing about this attack is that it doesn't matter if you only have 1 priority, as you can use a Start to Beat to gain that speed. On the other hand, it will counter those slow juggernauts like Cadenza with its odd hit effect. It's great, it's amazing, and it's an instant win. And that's pretty much most of the things you guys need to know about Marmalee, our lost princess. If you're planning to bring our Dragon Librarian to your battlefield, here are a few last-minute tips. Number 1, make use of strikes, dashes, and shots a lot. Defense is good on Marmalee, but she doesn't have any of it. So make use of those 3 bases very well and don't use them just to attack. Number 2, use her concentration tokens wisely. Keep them in your pool to make opponents play suboptimally, but remember to spend them when the time is right. And finally, number 3, be patient. Marmalee is all about patience. Most of her games last 14 beats. So don't expect anything to end and don't expect any big damage when you're using Marmalee. Your patience will be your ultimate weapon when using this character. And that has been Battle Guides, episode number 4 featuring Marmalee. If you guys like this guide, send me a like, subscribe, or send me a comment down there. I'd also like to give a special thanks to Yannick, who wrote this guide for me, and then I just pretty much looked over it and told him what was wrong and it was cool and what I would keep and stuff. So if you guys want to send in guides for me for the remaining characters, that's all fine and dandy. Send it to mechanicritic@gmail.com. I'll put the link in the description down below. And I'd like to do something that I haven't really done in the previous videos. I'll let you guys pick who I do next. So we have Alexian and Karen and Jaeger left. So which among these two do you want to pick, huh? King, werewolves. King, werewolves. King, just click on these two so that I'll find out which one you guys like the most. Or comment or whatever. I'll just pick which guys you like the most. It's King. Okay. Thanks a lot for watching, and bye. Hey guys, I'm really sorry for the delay in this video. I filmed it before and there was a lot of technical difficulties and it seemed so unprofessional, and I didn't want to give you guys substandard quality material. So I decided to refilm this entire episode today, and I will be editing it tomorrow. Hopefully it's up by then too. Thanks a lot for your patience, guys. I promise I'll be filming videos more consistently and I'll have it with you guys every week. Tune in also for a new episode of Battle Tips involving the special action. And keep a watch out for our BattleCON podcast. Yes, not the one made by Brad, but the one made by me and my friends. We're going to be talking about character balance, character meta, and the shifts in meta that Devastation is about to bring to all of us. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks a lot, guys. And remember, don't forget your special action.